What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to have a look at Luffy. Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a couple new Luffy which are coming around in OP05 that are frankly a pretty big deal. We've got the Oda drawn Luffy, which is a pretty big deal. And then we've got the Oda signed Luffy, which is a very, very big deal. Now, as I record this, the set is just coming out. My advice to you, lovely ladies and gentlemen, is this. Just hold off for a minute, alright? Because in terms of pull rates, we don't know. Now, I'm hearing that the drawn card, the Oda drawn card, is 1 per case. But I don't know if we've got enough information at this stage to really say that with certainty. I'm hearing that the signed Luffy is 1 per 40 cases, but I'm also seeing a bunch of people posting that they've pulled it hours after the release, and I'm not sure how many we should be seeing pulling it that close to release if they're really 1 per 40 cases. I'm seeing a bunch of posts online from people being like, hey, I pulled it, I'm so happy, I'd never pull the good stuff, etc. And I shouldn't be seeing multiple of those if it's legitimately 1 per 40 cases. That seems over the top. So just for the time being, let's all hold off for a minute, because we don't know exactly what the pull rates here are, and I don't think we've had long enough to get the information. 1 per case for the Oda drawn Luffy does actually sound about right. That is very believable. 1 per 40 cases, it would make it a very rare card. I'm not sure we necessarily have the information here. Now, in terms of information we do have, we've got a pretty set price for the drawn Luffy at this stage. It's selling for 10,000 yen. There are multiple listings, multiple sales over on Mercari. Remember, generally in Japan, people tend to use Mercari over stuff like eBay, which is why when we're talking about Japanese prices, we tend to go by Mercari. And by Mercari, we're looking at 10,000 yen. And I've seen a bunch of sales for 10,000 yen. And I've seen enough to convince me that this is kind of the price. That is not to guarantee that it's going to stay as the price, or that it's always going to be this, or it's not going to change, or any of those things. But it is to say that right now, as I record this video, I feel really comfortable calling it a 10,000 yen card. Which then, of course, does, raise the question, okay, 10,000 yen, what are we looking at here? Well, 10,000 yen, you're looking somewhere in the region of around about $68. You get rounded up to 70. It's about a $70 card. Honestly, for a card that's actually got like new Oda artwork, yeah, this is honestly not that bad. If we're talking 1 per case and the card is this gosh darn cool, then I'm absolutely okay with this. And do bear in mind, right, this isn't a new card, it's new artwork. This is the Luffy from Starter Deck 1. The one that's got Rush and then Don X2. When you're attacking, your opponent can activate blocker for this battle. And it's actually pretty good. Like we've seen it see play. It's not a game-breaking card. It's not one that's seeing a ridiculous amount of play here, there, and everywhere. But it is a decent card. And it's one that we see some play and some love. And it's cool, and this is a cool version of it. But this is awesome because it means that you don't have to have this version of the card. It's a cool version for your collection or if you want to bling out your deck, but you don't need it. Okay. So what about the signed Oda? Now, this is an awkward one, right? Because we don't have a huge amount of information. There aren't a huge amount of sales out there. There is a listing here which I've gotten from Pokemon Deals Community on Twitter. It's a listing for 555,555 yen. If that seems weird, don't worry about it. This happens in Japan quite a lot. This is the way people do their listings. I like to just repeat the same number. Not entirely sure why we don't see it on English eBay, but over in Japan, this is just a thing. So roll with it, it's fine. And this is $3,800. If you want to be a pedant, it's $3,803.96, but I think $3,800 as a rounding figure is fine. It's a $3,800 card. If it is 1 per 40 cases, yeah, honestly, And that's not a confirmed number. I need to be super, super clear about that. But if it is, then actually this price makes sense. And maybe it's not that ridiculous because, yeah, do you want to open 40 cases? And bearing in mind, if it is 1 per 40 cases, that doesn't actually guarantee that if you buy 40 cases, you'll pull one. It means on average, that is how long it should take to pull one. And that is very, very, very different indeed. So yeah, this is a very expensive card. Which then leaves me to the question of, well, alright then, how does this stack up against some of the other kind of proper high-level cards? Well, we can go to Japanese sites and we can have a little bit of a look at the manga rares, bearing in mind, in terms of set cards, up until now, the manga rares have been the real high-end cards, and we don't really have enough data to talk about the Luffy yet, the one from OP05, so I'm going to kind of stay away from that one. My apologies. It's not been listed on websites yet, so I really don't think it's a good idea to include it. But we can have a look at the others, and they're nowhere near this signed Oda Luffy, assuming this price is about right. So your manga Shanks is coming in at about 128,000 yen, which is obviously significantly less. 128,000 yen in terms of dollars is about 875. That is, again, significantly cheaper. So, yeah, I mean, it's still a huge amount of money for a card that can be pulled from a pack. But compared to the early prices for this signed Oda Luffy, absolute bargain. If we move to OP02, we find ourselves with Manga Ace, and it's actually coming in at the same 128,000 yen. As it stands at the moment, these are apparently just analogous cards. By the way, I'm using Japanese Scantics. We're talking about the Japanese versions of these cards. So I'm telling Japanese prices. We're looking at Japanese scans. We're not comparing the Oda card that just came out in Japan to the English releases of some of these cards, because that wouldn't really make a huge amount of sense, and that would be, well, confusing, frankly, ladies and gentlemen. That would be a little bit confusing, so we're not doing it. Now, OP03 gave us the Sniper King, and we all know that one is significantly cheaper. That one is coming in at 40,000 yen, which is like just under a third of the other two we've looked at so far. 40,000 yen is a $275 card. Yeah, this is the one I pulled. No complaints, of course. I pulled a manga rare. I am delighted. But it is, by a huge margin, the cheapest of the manga rares. And then Sabo in OP04 comes in. Actually a little bit cheaper than some of the others, but double the Soch King. You're talking 80,000 yen. So you're talking somewhere in the region of about $550. Little bit of rounding to make things easier, but only by a couple of dollars. It's fine, I assure you. So yeah. This is miles above. Like, Shanks and Ace are the two big manga rares so far. They come in at 128,000 yen. The very early information we have here is 555,000 yen. It's not even close, ladies and gentlemen. It's not even close. Now, we do have another Luffy card, which is ridiculously expensive, and that is the Serial Luffy. Now, what I will tell you is, in terms of Serial Luffy, this is, well, cheaper. Honestly, this is cheaper than your Serial Luffy. Serial Luffy, I found a couple of listings online on Mercari today, and these are sold, and they are for 690,000 yen and 722,222 yen. Again, like repeating that number. So here, let's just even them out and call it, and I know it's not exactly even, but let's even them out to about 700,000 yen. Let's take a rough value of the Serial Luffy at 700,000 yen. That is $4,800. So that's at least more expensive. Like, the signed Oda Luffy is cheaper than the Serial Luffy. But one thing you've got to bear in mind is, over in Japan, they've moved on. Serial Shanks is now a thing. And what that means is that Serial Luffy is kind of on the out. So that card is only getting rarer and rarer as time goes by. That is not the case with this Oda Luffy, which is going to get more and more out there as more and more people pull it. I believe, and I don't have any proof of this, I can't have any proof of this, but it seems like we're probably going to have a lot more of these pulled in the not too distant future, and the price is going to come down. And what we're looking at here are very much the early people pulling, the people trying to get the first ones out there to try and get the first sales. As a side note, a bit of advice from your old pal Wassy here, if you're going to buy this, don't buy it now. Give it a week or so for a lot more to be pulled and the price to stabilise. But the fact of the matter is, as we stand at the moment, this seems to be just a little bit lower than these serial cards, which is absurd, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely absurd. We'll see what people end up paying. We'll see how this ends up stabilising. I will come back with an update in the not too distant future. But right now, that is the price we're looking at, and it is, I think it's fair to say, fairly ridiculous. But I want to hear from you guys. Is this a card you covet? How much would you pay for it? Tell me all of this and more in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wassy. That's where we talk about Pokemon and card games and Pokemon card games, all kinds of fun things. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wassy Plays.